Hello and welcome to the Thursday live stream to improve your grammar, widen your vocabulary, and improve and supercharge your listening skills. If this is your first time watching, hello. My name's Craig from the website mentioningles.com and from the podcast website inglespodcast.com, where you can improve your English by listening to podcasts. And also I have another site, and Lynn will probably say something about so many websites.
That's just because I do all
englishcraig.com.
the time, don't I?
englishcraig.com is where you can study with me on conversation courses to improve your speaking and your fluency in English. And with me today, my good friend Lynn. Be careful of cheap imitations from putitlikethis.com. The one and only Lynn.
Only me, yes, it's only me. And I'm not going to make any comment about your websites because I'm going to be original this week. But I liked your introduction about supercharging your English. I thought that sounded very sexy.
Very sexy.
Well, very,
Maybe I'll have to
very.
undo a button. No, I won't. I won't hear it.
All right, everyone will ignore our introduction. But my name is Lynn. My website is putitlikethis.com, if you don't know me. And I am an online teacher of English. And I specialize in trying to tailor make a course to fit your specific objectives. And your objectives could be lots of different things. Everybody has different objectives. So it could be you want to improve your English to travel, or maybe you want to improve your English for your job, or maybe you are trying to pass an exam. And you need some help in improving your technique or to optimize your mark. Also writing. Yeah, so many different things. If you go to my website, putitlikethis.com, you'll see a big list of things that I do. And then if anything is amongst those and you're interested, you can contact me over the contact page of my website.
Putitlikethis.com. Write it down. Don't forget it. Now, if this is your first time watching, hello, welcome. Please say hi in the chat if you're watching on YouTube, on LinkedIn. We're also going live on Facebook. So let us know who you are, where you are in the world, and say hi so that we can see you. We have some people already in the room. Concha is in the house. Hi, Concha. Good to
Hello,
see you.
Concha. Hi, nice to see you.
Marlene is
Marlena.
here.
Nice to see you back again as well, Marlena.
And
And
Alejandro.
Alejandro. Hi, Alejandro. Nice to meet you.
Good to see all of you.
And Denise.
Denise. I can't see
Denise.
Denise. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Denise
there
is
you are.
here. Hi, Denise.
Hi,
Good to see you.
Hi. Okay. All right. So, Craig, what's the topic today? Now, if you remember, if any of you were with us 2 weeks ago, until Christmas, we are alternating the focus of the live streams that we're doing. So 2 weeks ago, we focused on the kinds of topics that can come up in many English exams so that you can have a little bit of help in generating ideas about topics. So once every one live stream, once every 4 weeks. So we do the live streams every 2 weeks. So once every 4 weeks, you have a live stream that's based around a topic. That's what we did last time. And then the other live stream in the month is the once every 4 weeks, you will have the focus on grammar or vocabulary. And today we are doing
the second and third conditional sentences. If we've got lots of questions prepared for you, we'll revise and go over the grammar so that everything is clear as far as the structure of the conditional sentences are concerned. And I've been in Spain for many years, and I still have problems sometimes with conditional sentences in Spanish because of the structure and the way that the subjunctive is used. And I'm sure it's the same for you guys who are learning English, that sometimes you get these conditional sentences confused, and they do come up. They're tested fairly regularly in exams like the Cambridge exams as well, aren't they?
Yes, but I think it's a very common thing often to say in speech as well with conditionals, um, especially the second conditional, really, more so
Like
than
this, for example.
conditionals. Yeah. If only I could use conditional sentences correctly, my English would be better. I think there's lots of moments in conversation when we use conditionals. Sometimes we use conditionals to give advice, for example,
Hmm.
um, to help people out when people have a problem. Often we try to help them, and they say, "Well, if you did this, then maybe that would happen." So you are called on to give conditionals quite a lot. If you're a parent, whether you're parenting in English, I don't know, but if you're a parent, we often speak in conditionals to our children. If you eat up your vegetables, then I'll let you go out later. Or um,
Hmm.
uh, so we do use they do come up quite a lot, I think,
They
conditional
do, yeah.
in
So
everyday
let's
speech.
let's start with the second conditional. We use it. Well, here's an explanation. We use it when we're talking about situations that are not real; they're hypothetical, in the present or in the future. And the structure you can start with if in the first part. Try and think of the conditional sentences as two separate parts, two separate clauses. If blah 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 blah, da 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 da. Two separate clauses. So if plus the past simple of the verb, and then in the second part, would plus the base verb. Let me show an example here. If I won the lottery, I would buy a Ferrari. That's
Hmm.
true for me. If I won the if I won the lottery, I would buy a Ferrari. I think I love Ferraris.
I think, and if I can add something here as well, if I may, I think, as Craig said, try to think of it as two parts, but you really must remember that the if is with the past simple here, and the would is in the other part. Now, sometimes you can change the order of the conditional. You can begin, I would buy a Ferrari if I won the lottery. That's also possible. But can you see that the if always stays with the past simple, the past tense of the verb? That's very important, because the most common mistake that I hear is people putting would in both parts, and would is not in both parts. Okay, so the condition, if you like, is with the past simple, or the past continuous, but it's with the past tense. The condition is with the tense, and the word would is the bit that expresses, if you like, the hypothetical result, in a sense.
And we often, when in spoken English, we often contract that second part. That would becomes I'd. So if I
Mm-hmm.
won the lottery, I'd buy a Ferrari, or I'd buy a Ferrari if I won the
Mm-hmm.
lottery. So we
And I
often
think
contract those.
that often causes a lot of problems for you guys, because often you don't hear it. So you hear, if I won the lottery, I'd buy a Ferrari, and you haven't really heard the I'd. And then, of course, when you speak, you forget to say the would. And then that's where the mistake comes. Okay. But I mean, I definitely would recommend that you get into the habit of saying I'd, because it usually is contracted. You can write it like that, but an English a person, if they were reading that, I'd say, if I won the lottery, I'd buy a Ferrari. I
Another
would
example.
read it, even though it's not written with the contraction.
Another
Hmm.
example. If I were you, I would study English with Lynn.
Hmm.
So some you might hear it if I was you. If
Hmm.
if you're taking an exam, I would. There's another example. If you're
Hmm.
taking an exam, I would use were. Although
Hmm.
you do hear was quite a lot, and I think
Hmm.
it's become accepted now, hasn't it,
I
in the
think I
language?
think
If I
so.
was
I
you.
think it is. If I was you, if I was you. Hmm. But yeah, I like the sentence. If I were you, to all of you, I would study English with me. Not him. Not him. study English with me.
Now, let me see if you agree with this sentence because I wrote this sentence without asking you, Lynn. I think that if you had more time and money,
Mm,
you'd travel around the world. Is that true?
absolutely.
I thought
Yeah.
so. I thought so. So if we both had more time, notice the had there. That's the past simple there. If I had more time, I'd travel around the world, or we'd travel around the
Travel
world,
around the
or
world.
reverse it. Doesn't matter. We'd travel around the world if we had more time and money. So, your turn to practice. Remember, if plus past simple, make sure the if and the past simple are in the same part of the sentence, and then would plus the past participles. So, here's a question for you. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
And we'd like you to practice this. So please, can you start typing in the chat your answers and try to type the whole sentence if you can. So,
We've already
if you
got
could.
some examples coming in. If I had more money, I'd travel around the world, and I would travel worldwide. Very good.
Yeah, you can come with us. We're doing that too.
Yeah, let's all go together.
Yeah. Okay.
So where would you go? Where would you go to live
If you could
if
live
you
anywhere
could
in the world.
live anywhere? Where would you go, Lynn?
Well, do you know, it's an interesting question that, because the thing is, I've been very lucky because I have traveled and I have lived in many countries, and I chose to come here to live in Valencia.
So you wouldn't move, you'd stay there.
So I'm not sure whether, I mean, I would like to visit different places, and I wouldn't mind spending longer time living temporarily in other places. Uh-huh. But to be honest with you, I mean, we made a very conscious decision to come to Valencia. We didn't know Valencia beforehand,
Hmm.
and I like the lifestyle in Spain.
Yeah, I do
Uh-huh.
too. Just one thing while you're writing answers to these questions, I suggest you write the full sentence. I mean, you might just answer a question like that with the second part. You might just say, "Oh, I'd go to live in Morocco, for example, or I'd go to Australia. I would go to Australia." But it might be an idea for you to write all of the sentence so that you're practicing the grammar structure, the grammatical structure.
Okay, so Concha's giving us some food for thought. She says, if I could live anywhere, I'd live in Hawaii.
That's
Really?
a good that's a
Wow.
good choice. Yeah, I've never
Do you
been to
think so?
Hawaii.
I'd like to know why you want to go to Hawaii, Concha. I mean, I see Hawaii. It does look lovely on Hawaii 5-0, the
Perfect weather.
series, doesn't it? Nice. Well, I'm not sure because they get lots of wind in Hawaii. They
But
have
there's the
it's a very windy
trade wind
place.
breeze, though, isn't it, Concho? Isn't it the
Well, I
trade
think they
wind
do. No,
breeze
but they
that's
have all the big surfing, don't they? They have all the big wave surfing. So they must get quite
yeah.
big, strong winds in Hawaii. And also, the thing that I wouldn't like about Hawaii is that it's an island in the middle of the Atlantic. I think it's a very long way to go to other places if you live in Hawaii.
Well, it's very well connected, I think, to the US because it's a state. So I think there's frequent
Yeah, but they're long
flights.
flights, you know. It
Yeah,
is in the middle of the Pacific, Hawaii.
yeah.
I know it because when I fly to New Zealand, sometimes the flights used to stop in Fiji or in Hawaii. You used to be able to fly that way. And I don't know whether I'd like to be. I mean, I am English, and of course, we've grown up on an island, haven't we, Craig?
Yes.
But I'm not sure whether I would like to live on an island if it was so far away from another continent, let's say. Mm.
Interesting.
But it
Marlene,
does look like a paradise, Concha. I think it does look like a paradise,
it
definitely.
does. Marlene says that's easy. If I could choose, I would go to Ireland. Yes. Beautiful island. Lovely and green. Lovely people.
But
Um,
wet, Marlena. You have to like the rain if you go to
yeah.
Ireland.
Yeah, it's very wet. It rains a lot in Ireland.
Yeah.
That's why it's so green. Concha
Uh-huh.
says it's just an example. It has a wonderful nature. Not a wonderful nature, just wonderful nature. No article necessary.
Yeah.
Wonderful nature and beaches. Yeah, true.
Uh-huh. True. That's true, Concha. But I think it's a long way from from other
Too far.
places. Too far for me. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay.
Shall we go to
Another
another
one
question?
then. Yeah, let's go to another question.
If you were the president of your country, what would you change? Quite a serious question
Oh,
there.
that is a serious question there.
What would you change if you were the president or prime minister of your country? I wonder.
Well,
I think that would be a job with a lot of responsibility.
it would be. Yeah. Have you got any idea? What would you do, Craig? Have you thought of anything?
If I were the president of Spain, I would. Stop those really noisy motorbikes that go down the street. You know, the ones that are really. The really loud. I'd penalize people who made too much noise. I'd put electric buses everywhere and electric cars so that there was no traffic noise and pollution. That's what I'd do. Yeah. I'd
That's what I do.
install, if I were president, I would spend money on making electric cars chargeable everywhere. So putting electric points wherever there's a petrol station and try and change the country over to electric power. And I would build nuclear power stations to create electricity.
Would
Nuclear
you?
power. Yes, I
Oh,
would. That's a controversial thing to say, I know.
that is a controversial thing.
But I think that's the answer to our energy problems.
Alejandro says, he's got a thing. If I were the president of my country, I would change the president.
president.
Me.
Yeah.
Very clever, Alejandro. Very clever.
It's not a very easy job to do, I would imagine.
No, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because we criticize a lot, don't we? We love to criticize the politicians and the presidents, but when somebody does actually ask you, what would you do? Then you think, well, I would like to do that, but then, like when you were saying about the electric points of the chargers of the cars, I was thinking, yeah, that's a good idea, but there's a lot of problems with that. Like, what are you going to do with this, and what are you going to do with that, and like, where are you going to get the electricity from, and
Nuclear
like
power.
what any of these things? Yes, but it's all it's a long train of different problems, and then you think, oh, I don't know, I'd just change the president.
Yeah.
I'd get voted out. Marlena.
If I were the prime minister of Malta, I would decrease the focus on the construction business and instead invest in nature and green spaces. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good. Oh, I have one. I have one now. I think if I were the prime minister of Spain, I would try to achieve a better balance between tourism and local places, because I think a lot of places in Spain that are very beautiful and culturally, where the culture is quite rich, I think they're becoming a little bit destroyed with over tourism. So I think I would focus on trying to maybe reduce a little bit the dependency on tourism.
Yeah. It's becoming a problem in many areas in this country, but it brings in a lot of money. So I kind of understand why.
No, but that's why I say if I was president, I would try to reduce the dependency on
more of a balance. Yeah.
to have more of a balance. And Concha says, if she were the president of her country, possibly Hawaii, she'd change a lot of things.
More paddle courts, I'm guessing, Concha.
Yeah.
For you to play
Or pickleball, wasn't it? Pickleball you like.
Pickleball and paddle.
And paddle. Great.
Okay, let's go to the next one. If you found a suitcase full of money, what would you do? Maybe we have to put an amount to that. Let's say, I don't know, let's say 20,000 euros.
Oh, that's a small amount. I thought you would have gone for 1 million.
Should we go more? Oh, no, that would be too big of a suitcase. Okay, let's say 50,000 euros in a suitcase. What would you do with it? I have to say, so far, all of your sentences have been very, very good.
Yeah,
Correct
they're
grammatically,
great. Uh-huh.
imaginative, and accurate. So maybe we'll do two or three more and then maybe go to the third conditional and see how you are with your third conditionals. So, what would you do, Lynn, if you found a suitcase? Would you keep it? Would you take it to the police? Would
No,
you?
I'd take it to the police straight away, I think, if
Why?
I found a suitcase. Well,
50,000?
yes, definitely. Because the thing is, you don't know. It could be drug money or it could be mafia, and then you might get. I've watched Breaking Bad. I'd be terrified in case whoever had that amount of money would come after me and my family and kill me. I would rather take it to the police station, and then possibly, if it was legitimate, the money, maybe the person who it belonged to, maybe they would give me a reward.
Well, if it was mafia money, you wouldn't get a
No, they
reward.
wouldn't. Yes, but I wouldn't die, would I,
True,
by handing it in to the police? Yeah.
true. Yeah. I think I'd keep it.
Would you? Would
Yeah.
you really? Uh-huh.
I changed the bag because the bag might have a tracking signal on it, and you wouldn't want to be found by the mafia. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, I might change it into a different suitcase, and then keep it.
So finders keepers is what is your motto, is it?
Well, think about it. I mean, yeah, there's a chance you could be found by the mafia or by some drug cartel, but then um, if it's drug money, then it doesn't really belong to anyone. Like, it's not their personal savings. Nobody's going to be walking around the street with 50,000 euros in a bag. Like, it's not like
Well,
you're stealing, but you're not stealing from someone who it's important to.
yeah, but I mean, you've got all those poor drug addicts on the street. It's the money that's come from people who've been maybe coerced, possibly, or made mistakes and got involved in drug addiction. And I think if that money goes back into the country's coffers, hopefully it would be spent on some kind of social rehabilitation. And I mean, it's country money. I think that would be better in. I mean, I would hope it wouldn't go to the policeman's private pocket.
Well,
But if we assume that the police would treat it properly, then eventually it would be given to the government, wouldn't it? And it would be reinvested in society or not.
I am playing devil's advocate a bit here.
I know you are.
That's I might
And
not
so am
keep
I.
it. I might not keep it, but I'd be. Let's put it this way. I'd be very tempted.
Of
I'd be very
course. I think
tempted
you would be very
as
tempted.
as a
Uh-huh.
poor English teacher. Let's see what people have written. What does Marlene say? That's tricky. Well, I'll be honest. My first thought would be to keep it. Yeah, that was my first thought, Marlene. But then I would feel too guilty, so I'll bring it to the police.
Uh-huh. And Marlena's done well there, because can you see that she's kept up the wood? Yeah. So she's
Yes.
got three ideas there, and she's not using an if, but she is using the conditional tense, right? Because obviously it's not necessary. If somebody asks you a question like we've just done, it's often not necessary to repeat. If I found a suitcase full of money, then my first thought. So the way Marlene has answered there is very natural, Marlena. Well done. And she's got three ideas, but she has kept up the conditional, because all of those things are speculation about what she would do in that situation, and you need to keep repeating the would. But if you were to, I can't hear you, Marlena. I do hope that when you're typing it, you're speaking it aloud, because that's very good practice for all of you. When you're writing these things, speak them aloud. I do hope that you're contracting. So my first thought would be that first one would be difficult. My first thought would be to keep it, but then I'd feel too guilty. So I'd bring it to the police.
And when you're pronouncing that word, especially if you're a Spanish speaker, I know sometimes there's a difficulty pronouncing that w sound.
Mm-hmm.
Also, for some Asian and Indian countries and Pakistan, that it comes like a v. It sounds like a v would, but it's
Mm-hmm.
w. You have to put your lips together like that, like you're
As
kissing
if you're going to
someone.
kiss someone.
W
What?
w, and then
Uh-huh.
draw your lips back with a w sound.
Uh-huh.
I
Would.
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 Concha said she'd take it to the police. Very
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. Concha.
And Alejandro the same, I think, to the closest police
Police
station.
station. Well done. You're on my side.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'd do. I think it depends on the situation. I
I
might take
also,
it to the police.
yeah, and the also thing is, if it was 20,000 or 50,000, there could be a legitimate explanation. It could be some old grandmother who is taking her savings to the bank and gets on a bus and leaves the suitcase behind by accident, or somebody who's going to pay for something and they literally, legitimately leave it. And if that was you would, if that was you, here's the conditionals coming, you see, all the time. If that was you would like to have the money given back to you, wouldn't you?
Well, if I was, yeah, of course.
You
And
would
if I
hope
found
that
it,
somebody would give it back.
and I think there might be a difference also. If I found it on a bus, then I would be more inclined to take it to the police. But if it was behind a bush or thrown into a rubbish bin in a hurry or something, or in a suspicious, you wouldn't expect a drug baron or a mafioso person to be on a bus, would you? Really? They wouldn't be traveling on
No,
a bus.
no.
So, yeah, it probably wouldn't be mafia money.
But imagine another scenario. Imagine you found it like in a bin outside or next to a lamppost or something like that. If you took that money, you don't know, possibly the person who the money was supposed to be going to could get killed, couldn't they? And
Yeah,
that would be on your conscience
yeah, yeah.
if
Maybe,
you
yeah,
knew about it.
maybe I'll fall in line with everybody else and
I
take it to
think
the
you should. I think
police.
you should take it to the police station.
Let's.
And notice there, sorry, I just want to point out there as well. Look at what I'm doing now with the advice. If you found it, you should take it to the police station. Now notice that I'm changing would for should. And it's still a conditional. So some second conditionals don't always use would. They can use should as well. Should is, of course, the modal verb where I'm really strongly recommending to Craig that he do something. So I say, if you found it, you should take it. If you find it, you should take it to the police station.
Let's have one more before we move to the third conditionals. If you could meet any historical figure, who would you choose and why?
That's a nice question.
Possibly, well, probably someone who's dead, if they're historical. So someone in the past who you could bring back to life and meet and have a conversation with. Who would you choose and why? Difficult question. That's got me thinking. I think you had a chance to look at these questions before.
I
Did
did.
you
I
think
thought
of
about that
anyone?
one. Yes, I did. And it didn't take me very long, actually, to think of that one. I would really like to meet Nelson Mandela
Yeah.
because I read his autobiography and he sounds like a very interesting person. And I would like to meet him and I would like to learn from his humility, I think. I don't think I would like to meet him when he was young, but I would like to meet him when he was older, when he became the president and he unified the country as the first black president there of South Africa. I would like to have, to meet him in that phase of his life, I think. And you?
I'm thinking. I mean, when you mentioned Mandela, my mind immediately went to Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, who would be
Mm-hmm.
also interesting to speak to,
Mm-hmm.
who successfully defeated the British
Mm-hmm.
peacefully,
Mm-hmm.
and a very philosophical man. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe him.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? John F. Kennedy, perhaps. Churchill would be interesting.
John F. Kennedy. You'd be interested in John F. Kennedy, yeah?
Yeah, yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Mm.
He was. He appeared in power at a time when when America really needed a strong leader, and he was
Mm-hmm.
very charismatic, and a lot of people believed in the future of the country because of him. And then he got assassinated.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be interesting to meet him.
Mm-hmm. But I
Who
often think
else?
with John F. Kennedy that he wasn't in power long enough to be um, disliked, maybe. Like, can
Hmm.
I say?
You
Like
think
his
if
assassination kind of made him, like it immortalized him, didn't it? He was like this young man who, and it was a dreadful assassination. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It was terrible, the way his life was ended. Whereas with Mandela, he died naturally. Of course, Gandhi was assassinated, but
yeah,
both Gandhi and Mandela, they had many, many years of experience in power. They also had enemies. Obviously, Gandhi did because he was assassinated. So they were more, I don't know, I think I would be more interested to hear what they would say about their experiences. And I see JFK, and I think he probably had experiences, but he wasn't as an experienced a statesman as as those other two. I think they
that's
were very
true.
special. Those two.
And also, like scientists and like Einstein, you could meet, couldn't you? You could meet
Mm-hmm.
Galileo, you could meet Da Vinci, you could meet all these famous, wonderful people who
Mm-hmm.
basically changed the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Concha
um,
agrees with me. Me and Concha are good. Apart from Hawaii, Concha, I'm not coming to Hawaii with you. But
I'll go to Hawaii with you,
I'll
Concha.
come.
Save
I'll
me a
come to.
seat.
I'll come to the police station with you, Concha, and I'm glad that you're choosing Nelson Mandela. We'll go together.
Okay, let's go to
The third
the
conditional.
third conditional,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'd like
Oh,
you
but
to
hang on,
write.
Marlena's got a lovely answer now for the
What's that?
for the. It was just coming a
An
bit later.
intriguing question. Nice
Question.
word.
It was indeed.
Queen Elizabeth, which one, the first or the second? The one that defeated the Spanish Armada or the one that's just died last year?
Uh-huh.
Probably the recent one, the
Okay,
second.
now Marlena, you've written that really beautifully, but there is one mistake there. That's an intriguing question. That's good. I'd love to meet Queen Elizabeth and learn about her strength, resilience, and how she, of course, Queen Elizabeth is dead now. So it would be how she maintained
Maintained
a
positive
positive
outlook.
outlook and good health throughout her life. But that's good. Yeah,
Nice one.
great. Hmm.
Okay, so moving on to the third. And remember the grammar of the second because we want you to ask us some questions towards the end. So start thinking what you'd like to ask us using these conditional structures.
Hmm.
The third conditional is here we are. So we
Hmm.
use it for unreal or hypothetical situations in the past. So we're looking back and imagining a different past with a different past result. So it's all hypothetical. You've got facts which happened in the past, and then you've got the third conditional, which you can use your imagination to change the past and give a different past result. The
Hmm.
grammar is here. It's if plus the past perfect.
Hmm.
So that's had plus the past participle. And in the second part of the sentence, or the first part, if you reverse it, would have plus the past participle. The
Hmm.
pronunciation is tricky here. It's even trickier than the second conditional because would have very often contracts to would have. So it's difficult to hear would have. Let's look at some examples. Here's the first one.
So if I had known about Lynn and Craig's live stream, I'd have attended.
I'd have.
Uh-huh. Now, let's say it first with none. If I had known about Lynn and Craig's live stream, I would have attended. Right now, that's all pronounced with every single word, but it's not. Doesn't sound English. That is too emphatic the way you're saying that, and it's very common that we would contract. I had. This is in the past perfect, but we'd contracted to if I'd known. If I'd known. And that is very difficult to hear. And again, this is what causes problems, because when you write these conditionals, most people get them more or less because they remember the rules. But when they hear them or when they speak and they try to imitate, they don't realize that we're actually saying if I'd known is if I had known. So if I'd known about Lynn and Craig's live stream, and then instead of would have, I'm going to say I'd have attended. I'd have attended. And because attended begins with a vowel there, we're going to squash it onto the contracted bits. So we've got I'd have attended. So I'm really saying attended. I'd have attended. I'd have attended. And you just hear this little don't you, between it? It's like a
Yeah.
little beat in the music. So if I'd known about Lynn and Craig's live stream, I'd have attended.
I'd have attended.
I'd have attended.
Another example, which is a common example, you might have seen this in your course books. If she had studied harder, she would have passed the exam.
And
And
can you
in
contract that?
speech, yeah, if she'd have studied,
No,
if
if
she,
she'd.
sorry, let me start again. If she'd studied harder, she would have passed the exam. She would have passed the exam.
Or you can say she would have passed the exam. Or if you're speaking really fast, listen. If she'd studied harder, she'd have passed the exam.
And
If
remember
she'd
this,
studied harder, she'd, can you see that I'm contracting she would to she'd, then I'm contracting have with would, she'd have, she'd have, she'd have. It's exactly the same as before when I said I'd have, I'd have. And now we've got the third person and it's she'd have, she'd have. So if she'd studied harder, she'd have passed the exam. That's what you're going to hear. And you need to start listening out for it. Listen out for it. Once you hear it, you'll never go back. So once you hear it, it will help you to be able to pronounce it. And I do encourage you to try to pronounce it like that because it will make you more fluent. Your fluency stops when you start saying, if she had studied harder, she would have passed the exam. There's too many words there and it kills your fluency. So the fluency is, if she'd studied harder, she'd have passed the exam. And it's quite good if you do beats with this. I think it's very easy. So if she'd studied harder, so 3 beats. If she'd studied harder, she'd have passed the exam. If she'd studied harder, she'd have passed the exam. And you have to you can practice that in the shower. I always tell my students the best place to practice pronunciation is when you're showering. So because nobody hears you and you can shout it out whichever way you want. You can dance in the shower as well. If she'd studied harder, she'd have passed the exam. Yeah, you need to get the beat.
how long are you showering for? You must be in there for like half an hour.
That's why I'm so clean.
Don't forget with these sentences, we're talking about unreal situations. Did she study hard? No. And did she pass the exam? No. That's the fact. But we're changing it hypothetically with this conditional sentence. If she'd
And that
studied
is,
harder, she would have passed the exam.
and that is the big difference between the second and the third conditional. The second conditional is possible. If I won the lottery, I'd buy a Ferrari. That's possible still. We don't know because it's a conditional that's based in the present or the future. So the possibility is there. No, it's not very likely. That's why we use a second conditional, but there's still a possibility that it can happen. But with the third conditional is completely impossible. No, it's just speculation about the past, and we can't change the past.
unfortunately.
No.
Let's look at one more example before we go to the questions we've got for you. If they had left earlier, they would have arrived on time, or in normal speech from a native speaker, if they'd left earlier, if they'd left earlier, they would have arrived on time. Again, we've got that would have. They would
Would
have
have.
arrived. And as Lynn said before, you've got the consonant sound at the end of have, and you've got the vowel sound at the beginning of arrived. It's it's a schwa sound. It's the So those two join. Listen, arrived. They would have arrived. They would have arrived on time.
They would have arrived. And I would say, again, you don't contract as much as I do. I would contract even further. I'd say they'd have arrived on time. If they'd left earlier, they'd have arrived on time. You are leaving the would, but you contract would with have, which is possible too. It often depends on how quickly we're speaking. And the faster we go, the more we want to contract, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's go to the questions. Let's find a good one for you. Do you remember the pandemic back in 2020? Would you have done anything differently if you'd known about the pandemic in advance? Let's say, for example, they knew it was coming, we had more notice, we had more preparation time. What would you have done differently if you'd known about the pandemic in advance? Would
Yeah.
you
See if
have
you
gone
can
to
write your
Hawaii?
answers there.
Would you have gone to another country? Would you have changed jobs, for example, or done something differently? Let us know. What
That's
would
a
you
really
have
interesting
done?
question. I had to think long about that one.
What did you come up with?
Well, you're not going to like it, but I wouldn't have changed a thing.
Was it a positive experience for you then?
It was. So I liked very much. I wouldn't have done anything differently if I'd known about the pandemic in advance. I think it wasn't a pleasant experience. Of course, it wasn't, being in lockdown, and it was all very new, and it was very frightening as well when you saw people dying on the television of it.
Yeah.
I was very lucky because there was nobody in my environment who died of COVID. But I knew of people who had family members who died of COVID. So, I mean, it
Yeah.
was a very bad situation. But I think it was, for me personally, I think it was a very positive experience. I think it gave me time to think. It gave me time to step out of my life. And often I think I had wished that sometimes life would slow down. I think often I'd, been a little bit, sometimes when you get quite stressed with your job, it's like, oh, if only like life, we had more time. If only I could stay at home longer. If only, and so probably because I was older, obviously my children didn't think like that, but because I was older, there were many things that I really enjoyed about just spending time in family, being at home, not having so many responsibilities because you couldn't do anything really. You had responsibilities, but your hands were tied, weren't you? If you couldn't work, you couldn't work,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I suppose like our protagonism was taken away from us. So we had a chance to just be like children again, didn't we? We just had to sit at home and do what they told us.
So you didn't get bored, you didn't get frustrated, you didn't get the feeling of being trapped in your house?
A little bit, but I thought they were quite positive experiences in the end. It made you grow as a person, like you learned how to cope with the frustration, or I did anyway. I think it was, I mean, I definitely had moments where I was frustrated and bored and fed up and blah, blah, blah. But like looking back, I'm quite proud of myself that I managed it, So it made me feel stronger in a way. It didn't make me feel weaker, but I am aware that it made many people quite afraid, and it was a very nasty experience for many people. So, I mean, it's just a personal experience, but I don't think I would have done anything differently. I enjoyed the time that I had at home, I did jigsaw puzzles and
I would. There's something I would have done different if I, because what I did during the pandemic, once the immediate shock had passed, and I kind of accepted the situation that I had a lot of time on my hands. I had to stay at home most of the time. I had to find other things to do to fill the time that I would normally be working because we had no classes, did we? We couldn't go to the
no, no,
school.
no.
So what I did was I created a course for Cambridge exams, and then I tried to sell it. And it took me about 6 or 7 months to create that course. And I was quite proud of it. I was really
It was
happy
a
with
good
it.
course.
I
I
thought it,
remember I saw it.
yeah, I thought it was quite good. And unfortunately, probably more because of the marketing or because of some other issues, maybe it wasn't very successful. So I think it was a good experience, but if I had that time again, I would probably have invested it in doing something different. I'd probably have used that time maybe to learn a different skill or to create a different product or to invest my time in doing something else because obviously it wasn't successful. Let's see what people have written. Concha says, if I'd known about the pandemic in advance, I think I could have done.
I couldn't have done
I
differently.
couldn't have done anything differently.
Yeah,
I would add anything there. I couldn't have done anything differently.
yeah, me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any
And I
other
mean, really,
ideas?
I think what you were saying there about like you wouldn't have maybe written that course. You would have done something different. Um, Really, that's nothing to do with the pandemic, is it? That's just like
No.
a mistake that
Well,
you
it isn't. It
or
was.
a
It wasn't. It wasn't because I negative. I wouldn't have had the
the
time
opportunity to
available
write it.
to write and record and produce that course if the pandemic hadn't happened. Did
Yes.
you see why I've reversed it there? I wouldn't have had that time if the pandemic hadn't happened. It was because of the pandemic that gave me that time to
But
spend that
you
6 months doing that.
uh-huh.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I could do it. I could have done it, but it wouldn't have been easy because I had other commitments. I had other work. I didn't have so much free time.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, should we have
Okay.
one more question? What are we doing for time? We've got about
No.
10 minutes. Well, let's have one more question while you're thinking. But what we would like you to do is use your imagination and your grammar that you've learned, hopefully, in
Hopefully.
this hour. Write some questions for us using the second and third conditional sentences. So be careful of your grammar as you're writing these questions, and write similar questions for Lynn and I using a second or a third or both conditional sentences.
Marlena has written a nice reply to that question about the pandemic. And she says, if I had known about the pandemic in advance, I'd have changed my job earlier and gotten into a more stable workplace. However, the situation in Malta was not as bad as the other countries. Yeah, that's a great answer, and everything's is fine. And gotten into gotten there when you say I would have changed my job earlier and gotten into a more stable workplace. That past participle there is kind of American English, We would say I would have got into a more stable workplace, but it's not wrong. It's perfectly okay, Marlena, and I think many British people now are saying gotten into as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's becoming very popular to use that form. Okay, so they're going to write some second and third conditional questions for us.
Hopefully.
And in the meantime, are we going to look at one more question because you had
Yeah, I'm
so
just
many?
looking now. Can you find one that you'd like to put up on the screen for us to answer?
Yeah, maybe if you'd studied a different subject at university.
Okay, let's talk about this one. Excuse me. If you'd studied a different subject at uni, what career path would you have chosen?
A word about pronunciation again. I keep coming back to pronunciation. But when it's a question like what career path, then we don't contract it because we emphasize the would. So you can't say what career path would you have chosen. We would never do that. Okay. So when it's following the question word in questions, we do not contract it. Okay. It's only in the statements afterwards. So Craig, if you'd studied a different subject at uni, what career path would you have chosen, do you think?
I'd have. Let me think. I think I would have loved to. I'd have loved to have studied new media, so something to do with film or maybe audio or some kind of production like that. Maybe that's why I enjoy doing this. But I wish I'd studied something that was connected to technology in some way. So I think for me, yeah, it will be something to do with new media. What about you?
I think for many, many years, I really, I didn't regret because I don't really regret, but I do wish I'd studied medicine. I think for many years, after, I don't know, for about 20 years, I think, I used to say, if if I hadn't chosen languages, I probably would have chosen biology. The reason I didn't was because I wasn't very good at chemistry. Well, I was actually good at chemistry because I got a good mark, but I hated it and I didn't really understand it. Whereas biology, I adored biology. I thought it was fantastic, but human biology. Uh-huh. And so when it came to choosing languages or science, because of the chemistry that I was struggling with, I thought, no, I'll go for languages. And I've enjoyed my career in languages. I have. But I still have a little part of me that thinks, I would have liked to have been a doctor, I think.
So, do you spend time, or have you spent time looking at, like, not from a layman's perspective, maybe as an amateur kind of, not doctor exactly, but someone who's interested in the way the body works, diagnosing different diseases or illnesses? Do you read about it? Do you have an
I
interest and
think I do.
curiosity
I
about it?
do. I do. Especially in like internal. I mean, I don't think I would have liked to have been a surgeon, for example. That's not the kind of doctor I would have liked to have been. But I do find it fascinating. I find the human body fascinating. So I would like to do that one.
I don't know
I
if you've
think.
read this. Let me recommend a book to you that I'm
Uh-huh.
reading at the moment. It's by Bill Bryson. It's called The Body. Bill
Oh,
Bryson
uh-huh.
is an author that I really, really like because he's very funny. He's got a lovely sense of humor. And he wrote a book about the human body, but
Oh,
in
did
a
he?
very
Uh-huh.
accessible way.
Uh-huh.
It's very light reading, and you learn
Uh-huh.
so much
Yeah.
about all parts of the body, and it's a very interesting thing to read.
Oh, thank you.
Bye, Vishal. Thanks for joining us all the way from India.
Oh, wow. Bye bye, Vishal. Yeah.
Have a good evening. We don't have any questions,
Questions.
which
Nobody
means
wants
that
to.
everybody has understood everything we've said. There are no problems with the conditional
Uh-huh.
sentences, and nobody wants to know anything about us. So
Ah,
that's
but
good.
conditional sentences are so interesting, you know. You can find out a lot about of people when you ask conditional sentences.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Oh
well,
well, well, nothing to answer them. We shall go.
oh, no question for us.
No, no questions.
No questions.
We want
Uh-huh.
to see how you construct questions with the conditional sentences. So if you're watching and you have access to a keyboard or a mobile
Uh-huh.
phone, why not write a question and practice?
Yeah, well, Concha's written one. Well done, Concha.
Oh, thank you, Concha.
Uh-huh.
Let's put it up on the screen. What would you like doing if you had more free time?
Mm-hmm.
I would say, what would you like to do?
To do. Mm-hmm.
If the
Mm-hmm.
question is, what do you like? Then yes, you can use the gerund. What do you like doing? What do you like doing at weekends? What do you like doing in your spare time? With
Mm-hmm.
would, you need to change the grammar. So, what
Mm-hmm.
would you like to do if you had more free time?
Mm-hmm.
Oof, so many things. I've got a long, long list of things to do, Concha.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what I can remember. I'd like to organize all my photos in my computer. They are a complete mess. I'd like to sort through my books and maybe give some away,
Mm-hmm.
and get some books off the shelf that I don't want anymore. I would like to improve my Spanish, so I'd probably take a Spanish course.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Lynn?
I would like to take a Spanish course too. Mm-hmm. I would probably like to start to refresh my French because I've lost my French and I studied French. And I used to be, many years ago, could speak French. So I think I would like to refresh my French. I would definitely like to travel more.
Yeah,
But I
me
think I
too.
need more money. It's not a question, not just a question
Yeah,
of
it's not the
time. It's
time, it's
also
the
money.
money. Yeah.
I would like to play my piano and I would like to practice and learn and really put time into my piano, which I haven't done for years and years and years and years. Um, yeah, I think I mean, I suppose when you really have the free time, I'm not sure whether I would be doing those things, but I think that's what I think I would like to do.
Yeah, sometimes when we say I don't have time for it, what we really mean is I don't
We
want to do
can't be
it.
bothered. Uh-huh.
Can't be
Yeah, yeah,
bothered.
you can't be bothered.
Let's
Uh-huh.
let's finish with one final question from Lynn. Thank you. If
Mm-hmm.
you hadn't settled in Spain, which country would you have liked to build your?
Ah.
I wouldn't say build my roots. I would say
To
plant,
lay
lay
down
down my
or plant your
roots,
roots. Uh-huh.
plant my roots,
Yeah.
build my future. Maybe
Uh-huh. Build your future. Uh-huh.
that's a good question.
Oh, I have an answer straight away for that, Marlene.
Hawaii.
If I hadn't settled in Spain, well, depending on the political situation, because the political situation now in this country that I'm going to say is not, and it hasn't been for many, many years. But in the 90s, the country that I really wanted to live in and settle down in was Zimbabwe in Africa, because it's such a beautiful country. But unfortunately, since the 90s, it's had a lot of problems in Zimbabwe. So
Yeah.
obviously, it's not a place I would like to be at the moment, I don't think, because I think it's so insecure and
What
it's not.
attracted you specifically to Zimbabwe? Because there are many beautiful African countries with wildlife and
Yeah, but
animals.
Zimbabwe is lovely because it has a beautiful climate. It's although there are areas, I mean, and at the moment it's suffered from a big drought, but it can be very green. Uh-huh.
Does it have a beach?
No, it doesn't have a
Okay.
beach, but it has nice wildlife. The people of Zimbabwe are very nice. I suppose they have kind of they have maybe what attracted me was that many people in Zimbabwe, like they knew Britain, so there was like there was many cultural sort of crossovers between Zimbabwe and Britain. There was a big history there, and No, and it was just a beautiful. It was a lovely. The people were really nice, and I just loved the landscapes. But you're right, it didn't have a beach. It wasn't near the coast, for example. And there are other beautiful African countries too. But I really had a soft spot in my heart for Zimbabwe. I think I would have liked to have lived there.
I have a soft spot to a country that's close to your heart, Lynn, and that's New Zealand. I visited New Zealand
Really?
many years ago, and my wife and I both agreed that it would be a lovely country to go and live in. The reason that it was never a possibility is because it's just so far from Europe and so far from Spain. And when at the time when I settled here with my wife, my parents were alive, my sister's husband was alive. Unfortunately, they've passed away. So it would be too far, I think, from the family. And but it's a beautiful, beautiful country. So I think in another life, I would have liked to lay down my roots in a country like New Zealand or maybe Australia.
It is a beautiful country, but you see, you have hit the nail on the head there about where is it,
Yeah,
and that was my problem with Hawaii.
too
It's
far.
just too far away. It's a beautiful country. It is a beautiful country, no doubt about it. But for me, it's just too far away from everything else, from the rest of the world. So that's why I definitely was always clear about not wanting to go to New Zealand because of that. But my family disagreed. My family have all gone, so they're all there.
Yeah, there you go. Well, thank you for your questions. They were very interesting and very grammatically correct. So
You were,
thank you.
yeah, yeah.
We'll say
So
goodbye, Lynn.
yeah. So thank you very much for participating today. And if you are interested in doing personalized courses, then you can contact me at putitlikethis.com through my webpage. And you can also find out on the web more information about the kinds of things that I do.
Okay, and some of you know that I'm from mansioningles.com, which is a website if you're a Spanish speaker where you can study and improve your English. If you prefer listening to audio podcasts when you're multitasking and doing other things, you can find a podcast I do with a good friend and ex-colleague over at inglespodcast.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you want to improve your speaking, not only your listening, go to englishcraig.com where you can book a free consultation on Zoom and we'll have a chat about the schedule, the days, the times, and your English level to see if we can find a speaking conversation course that suits you. And until next time, thank you for watching.
All
Take
right,
care.
thank you.
And
And see
goodbye.
you in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah, thank you very much.
Take
Bye-bye.
care, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.
Have a good weekend as well.